Hey guys, and welcome to the wrap up. If you haven't been here before, this is the official Raptors Republic post game show where we recap, we dissect, and we have a lot of fun talking about the latest Raptors game. I'm your co host, Sahal Abdi, and tonight I'm here with the usual Oren Weisfeld. But tonight we also have a guest, none other than Louis Satzman from Raptors Republic, our new, might I say, managing editor, newly appointed. Lewis has done work at a ton of places. I'm gonna let Lewis introduce himself. Lewis, where have you written for? Because I know I'm gonna say it. 538 is pretty big, man. 538 is huge.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, 538. I've written at Sportsnet, CBC, The Athletic, bunch of places.
Dope.
Raptors Republic tonight, though. That's the one that counts.
We all know
Raptors
that
Republic tonight,
your
yeah.
heart is in Raptors Republic, and that's what's
100%.
important, right?
Has to
Yeah.
be. Has to
Yeah.
be. Or in tonight, and Lewis, I should say, tonight the Raptors were defeated by the Dallas Mavericks 114 to 110, bringing the Raptors record to 27 wins and 44 losses on the season. That sounds very weird to say. It's getting weirder as they pile up these losses. And tonight, I should say, guys, we probably all expected a loss, which is very sad to say as Raptors fans. I'm not used to saying it. I doubt either of you are used to saying it. But we did see some stars, some young stars, shine bright, starting with Jalen Harris and Malachi Flynn. I'll go with Oren first. Oren, what did you see overall in the game? And then I know we're going to get to Jalen and Malachi eventually.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can only really look at the game at this point from a developmental, player by player standpoint, rather than what the Raptors are doing holistically, because they have 7 players and 3 of them are centers. But we should talk about Jalen Harris and Malachi Flynn. I think it's safe to say that both of them played their best game as a Raptor on the same night, and they gave the Mavs a run for their money together. And it was really, the offense was pretty much literally just those two until Stanley Johnson came along as of late. But yeah, for most of the game, like the fact that those guys were carrying an NBA offense, playmaking load and scoring load is pretty impressive. I'll throw it over to you though, Lewis. What did you see from either of those guys tonight?
Yeah, man. Honestly, the nitty gritty from both of those guys was incredible. Jalen Harris had a play. It was a small thing, just step up pick and roll, where he just had a hit ahead dribble, just to get into the screen a little faster and just pulled up like
The corner.
right? Yeah, out of the corner, exactly.
Yeah.
It looked like Kyle Lowry, right? That's a Kyle Lowry move. He does it going left. Like he just speeds up going into the screen to create that extra space. Malachi looked a lot like Kyle when he hit the paint.
Oh, it's actually here, not to interrupt.
that
you,
three,
this one,
that
yeah.
exact shot.
Yeah.
Malachi had a lot of the same stuff, looking like Kyle, where he just reached the paint and just waited. I mean, like, those guys are good. And it's not just good, like, they're playing a Mavs team that knows they're going to win. Someone has to score. It's not that. It's good where they're doing concrete, good, productive NBA stuff, which is, when you lose 8 and 9, like, that's good. That's fun. That's exciting. That's why we're watching, right?
No, 100%. That's the reason why I'm watching. I don't necessarily. Again, it's pretty sad to say, but I find the good in these games. It's Jalen Harris is a guy in this game who's playing in front of his family. I didn't notice that, I think, until someone mentioned it on Twitter midway through the game, and then you started seeing the clips that were constantly going back to his, who I believed was his father, just cheering him on in the box seats up there. And that's incredible, man. Like, that's something we talk about a lot, about how NBA players dream to get here, to get to the final stage, to play meaningful games. And for these guys, like, we might look at it as fans as this isn't really meaningful, but to these guys it is, man. Jalen Harris and Malachi Flynn are trying to prove a point in this league. They don't care how many games are left. The Mavericks game is done. It's the Indiana Pacers on Sunday, and the season's over. Jalen Harris and Malachi Flynn are going to take every opportunity they can, all the young guys. Stanley Johnson is trying to find any way possible where he can stick to this team next year, can get on a rotation the following year on another team. These guys are all playing for something. So as pointless as some of these games, some of these late games may be for Raptors fans, in this one, man, no one's taking anything for granted. Or I think you've got to agree with me, no?
For sure, yeah. I mean, you see it with Gillespie, Stanley Johnson, like you just said. He's just fighting to be on a rotation or on a roster next season.
Yeah.
And even a guy like Aaron Baines and like DeAndre Bembry, like really everyone who played tonight, I think, like, maybe was imperfect, but played really hard and stuck to the system and played pretty well for the most part. And I feel like Malachi Flynn in particular, like he's going to get a little bit less shine because of what Jalen Harris just did tonight, dropping career high 31 points. But Malachi also dropped a career high, and he was the lead ball handler and playmaker, and he had 2 steals and some really timely ones at that. He's continued to impress me, just like what he was at the beginning of the season to what he is doing now, I think. And in particular, like from when he got to the Raptors, the playmaking, like the pick and roll playmaking was there. The defense was there. I wondered, like, what can he do as a scorer other than kind of like catch and shoot guy? And he's really just like showing that shiftiness that is really impressive at such a young age. And for a first year guard, like he did, like, I would say most of his work at the rim tonight, which is not something you expect for a guy like him. Like he still has that mid range and he has the pull up 3, but he was doing a lot of his work at the rim, just scoring around Porzingis, just some nifty stuff. So yeah, I mean, it just makes you excited for next season, but Malachi is definitely improving as it goes along every game.
Lewis, did you like what you saw from Malachi Flynn tonight?
Oh man, absolutely. First though, I wanted to shout back to your Jalen Harris being in Dallas thing. So last
cool.
night, from Dallas, huge Mavs fan, talked about how he celebrated the championship. And last night with media, asked about how many tickets he had. He unprompted said, "I'm going to play well tomorrow night." He was like, "I have to. It's Dallas, not just because I'm in front of my family and friends, but because it's Dallas, I have to play well against the team I rooted for as a kid," which is like, man, the confidence without being arrogant to say something like that. I just respected the hell out of it. It sort of took me by surprise, eyes will open wide a little bit when you hear someone say, like, "I will play well." You don't get such absolutes often from players with media, but that was I like that, and then he did, which obviously makes it that much better.
Especially a rookie, Lewis. So you don't hear that from a rookie. Jalen Harris saying, "You know what? I'm going to come into, my hometown where my family's going to be watching," and I know a lot of people at any level when their family's watching, whether it's college and they come across the country to watch you or whatever it is, or they stay at home and you're lucky enough or you're fortunate enough to make it, or you're really just talented enough to make it to the best league in the world in the NBA, and you have your entire family watching and you're getting a ton of texts and all, and that your Instagram is going to blow up whether you play well or not. Man, 31 points for Jalen Harris. Very efficient too, 12 for 21. Clutch buckets at the end of the game. He's 5 for 12 from 3. And the little things too. I know Samson during the game on Twitter I was following his tweets during the game, and he was mentioning that Jalen Harris just everyone was really mentioning how Jalen Harris seems to be improving game by game, but specifically his ball handling is something that has stood out. His dribbling package, it's so smooth. It's almost like Jalen Harris is gliding when he's dribbling and when he's attacking the rim. I was so hesitant, Oren and Lewis, to essentially just say that Jalen Harris deserves a rotation spot. I really just wanted to see more. And every game I've been seeing more and more and more from Jalen Harris. And I think I'm officially ready to say, I think I'm officially at the point where I can say, I think Jalen Harris deserves a shot at the rotation next year, a good shot at the rotation. And I've been hesitant for the simple fact that I think the Raptors' entire bench needs a rehaul for next year. I think guys like Stanley, guys like Baines, Bembry hasn't been as consistent as you would have liked. I think those are the types of players where me and Oren have said it so many times, where they bring good vibes, and sometimes they have good games, but overall you can't have players like that as the first coming off the bench, whether it's the 7th man, 8th man, 9th man. And I get it. The Raptors have gone through tons of injuries, and they're also resting players at this point. So I'm not faulting the Raptors for playing those guys now. But I think at the start of next season, hypothetically, if everyone's healthy, you don't want to see those same guys being staples in the rotation if the Raptors want to be a very, very good team next year and catapult back into that playoff race.
Yeah, and as a point of comparison, I mean, when the Raptors won a championship, Fred VanVleet and Serge Ibaka were their guys, the 6'7" guys coming off.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that is multiple levels and tiers above who the Raptors have now. And I mean, that's the difference between the championship team and a lottery team, right? But exactly as you say, it's not just, 21 night and then 6 the other. It's a guy like Serge who can get 17 night in, night out off the bench. Jalen Harris may be that eventually. I mean, he scored more than Malachi in college. He was scoring was his thing in college. He was unbelievable. He was like mini DeMar. And then his 3-point shot looks better now. He's better around the rim. Obviously, he won't be that next year, but eventually maybe he could be a really consistent bench scorer.
Yeah, and I think like the thing with these rookies is that it's so hard to accurately judge them because on one hand, you can cherry pick and you can say like, well, yeah, it sounds like cherry picking to say like, okay, they didn't have a real training camp. They didn't have a summer league. They barely had a G League. So it only makes sense that they're going to start to play their best basketball at the end of the year. But then on the other hand, there is a fair argument to be made against like the Mavs, like Lewis said, aren't bringing it their all tonight. And like, that's just naturally what happens in the last week of the season. Teams they see the Raptors on their schedule and they think it's a night off and they play sloppy and then they end it, they figure it out at the end. But that's definitely part of it, I would say. And just like the increased opportunity. But there is also like I was saying, the argument about them not really having time to adjust to the NBA and it just taking a little longer than a normal rookie class. So I think this is a more accurate time to judge rookies than maybe a month into the season in terms of their long-term upside. And if that is the case, then, a Flynn and a Harris, you can't really ask for more because they're just showing improvements every day.
Yeah. I don't even think we even mentioned who was starting in this game. Malachi Flynn was at point guard, which was expected. Kyle Lowry's out, Fred's out. So Malachi Flynn was at point guard. You had Jalen Harris at the shooting guard position. You had Stanley Johnson, Freddie G, and then Birch. Kyle Lowry, Pascal, Fred, OG all out. Boucher and Gary Trent Jr. were technically, or Lewis, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Technically, they were healthy, but the assumption was that they were going to sit, right?
Yeah. I guess it goes down as DNP coaches' decisions, which is hilarious because they're the best guys.
I think it is that they're trying to get a better look at these other guys, right? Because they have roster decisions to make on all of them.
Yeah. They know who they have in Gary Trent. They know who they have in Chris Boucher. Right. Khem Birch, I would almost think is on that line, but they are expanding his game so much from what he had in Orlando that I do see the value of letting him get extra touches. He had a couple sort of drives against closeouts, lots of 3-point shooting, types of things that it's worth its weight in gold in a game versus in practice. So I understand playing Khem, but you're down your top 7, top 6
exactly
in the rotation. What do you expect?
Yeah, it was unusual. 7 deep. This team had to go on a back-to-back. They played last night. Stanley Johnson had that OVO bounce game. I missed the entire game. I was celebrating Eid, but I can say that after, naturally I have to, check in on Twitter of what's going on after the Raptors game. And I was shocked. Stanley Johnson did well last night. 35 points. I don't know how many rebounds and assists, but he had a ton of each. So shout out to Stanley. Didn't play all that well in this game. He did shoot 16 shots, only had 15 points, but he did rebound well. 10 rebounds, an assist, a steal, and he was a +1. The only guy that was a plus on this team other than him was Aaron Baines, who somehow was a +12.
The Aaron Baines redemption tour starts 2 games ago.
Yeah, and Aaron Baines played well. Like, I'll give him credit. I'll give him
Yeah, he was
total
good.
credit because and you can say it's probably been rightfully so that we've dealt our fair share of criticism towards Aaron Baines, on all these shows. But 13 points, he was a plus 12. He had 6 rebounds in 21 minutes. He shot the ball pretty well.
Oh.
And whenever Aaron Baines shoots, I'm going to be totally honest with you guys, I hold my breath. But in this game, and again, I was watching from the Mavericks broadcast, and their broadcasters were shocked. They didn't think Aaron Baines or Khem Birch, for that matter, should have even been attempting threes. And here Aaron Baines is going 2 for 3 from 3. So shout out to him. I know a lot of people, they've been, I don't want to say on other people for the criticism of Aaron Baines. Some people have taken it too far, but that's the nature of Twitter. That's the nature of social media. A guy struggles in the league for a long period of time, and people say some crazy things. I've kept my criticisms strictly professional. Again, I don't want us to get demonetized or anything like that. So, no, but Aaron Baines played well. DeAndre Bembry played 38 minutes, so he essentially played starter minutes, right? They had 6 guys that played 35 minutes or more, if I'm not mistaken. Gillespie played 36, it says. Stanley Johnson, 35. Khem Birch also 36. Jalen Harris played 36 minutes. Malachi played the most at 30. Actually, no, DeAndre Bembry, 38. So, yeah, Bembry played 38 minutes, 8.7 rebounds, 6 assists. He did his usual, he's all over the box score with the rebounds and the assists. Not quite 4 steals like last game, but he did have a steal. What did you guys think about the guys not named Malachi Flynn and Jalen Harris before we move on to some of the draft stuff we want to mention?
I'll let Lewis go, and then we'll ask some other questions.
Anybody else stick out to you guys?
Yeah, I thought Bembry had bounce, man.
Yeah, he can jump.
Maybe 3 to 5 inches higher than any other game this season.
Yeah.
He had one play, he took off from the free throw line, and he ended up in a finger roll. But I thought maybe he was gonna dunk it. He a couple closeouts to the corners where, if I hadn't been watching, I was like, oh, that was Pascal or that was Chris, right? He was bouncy because these guys you mentioned, Baines, Bembry, Stan. These are auditions. They're playing for every other team, playing for contracts. And Bembry, I thought, of all those guys, is probably most likely to be back with the Raptors. And a game like tonight shows why. He had probably more of the spectacular with fewer of the lows than you're going to get that deep in the rotation. He was very fun.
Only 1 turnover from DeAndre Bembry in 38 minutes played. So that's big. And that's big for a guy like him too, because I'm going to be quite honest with you guys. There were some games, maybe I want to say in the last 10 games, his turnovers have been up there, 3, 4, 5. So for him to take care of the ball like that, I think is huge for his game. Or other than Malachi Flynn, Jalen Harris, and now DeAndre Bembry, who stuck out to you?
I'm taking the good ones.
No, I agree with that last point about Bembry. I think that's probably one of the biggest parts of his game that he needs to clean up is those turnovers. And part of it is that he's been pushed in this role where he's more of a playmaker than he should normally be. But still, some of the passes he's been making are just very ill-advised. And I like that he's cleaning up those. I mean, I guess I'll just go with Gillespie. There's not many people left here. But I mean, he's always at the rim. He could be a very elite shot blocker in this league, I think. And he's getting dunked on once every other game at this rate, but that's okay. That's what's going to happen. Positionally, I feel like he's getting much better on the defensive end. And I feel like he's just such a raw player that I'm intrigued. At this point, I'm definitely not ready to say anything about him that he could contribute to a rotation. But he's intriguing at his age and how not long he's been playing organized basketball. But we have Lewis on the show, and Lewis covers the Raptors so closely that we would be remiss to not ask some questions about the season at large and kind of try to wrap up what has been a really crazy, awful 2020-21 season. So we have some questions here, and obviously all of these questions come with the disclaimer, I guess, that the Raptors have been banged up. They've dealt with COVID. They're in Tampa Bay. So all of these things have affected their gameplay, I think, in significant ways. And we could never try to guess how or why or whatever. But
yeah,
like that exists in the background and it shadows whatever has happened this season. But at the same time, you can draw enough conclusions based on what we have seen. I mean, it's hard because the core group has not been healthy very much together. So it's hard to draw conclusions, but we're going to have to try. So I guess I'll start off on the offensive end. Because this is just something that I've found kind of funny all season is like when people say the Raptors have been, they're always in close games. Like they're always making it to the last minute. Like they're such a good team at keeping it close and keeping it competitive. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't think you realize that that's like the negative side of that is that they can't win close games. Like, I don't think that's being talked about enough, And I guess I'm wondering, like, do you think that this group, as currently constructed, can become like a much better like team in the clutch? Like, their execution this year was just terrible. They didn't have the 2 veteran centers that they had last year that they could run stuff through and who would make good decisions. And it was just a mess at time. And often, like, Siakam got blamed because he was the guy taking the last shot, but it's on the coaching staff, and I think it's on the core group. So do you think that this team can be good in the clutch?
Yeah, not only do I think they can, I know they can because they were in 1920. Like, they were one of the best few teams in the clutch. Obviously, losing Gasol and Ibaka hurts that a lot.
The 1920 season, by the way, guys, he doesn't mean the year 1920. Because I know that's going to be commented in a sec. The Raptors weren't there in 1920.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Toronto Huskies, obviously. But yeah, and taking the ball out of Kyle's hands impacts that a lot as well. I think, and I don't have the numbers to back this up like my other point, but, just my eye test was that Kyle had a lot of the ball closing last year, 2019 to 2020. And that shifted a lot to Pascal this season, with bumps in the road, obviously. And
Fred as well, I will say.
Yeah.
Fred also got a lot more of those possessions.
Fred, we know, can close. Fred has closed NBA Finals games with the ball in his hands, running pick and roll against the Golden State Warriors. I mean, Fred, I am totally confident as a second side, initiator. But yeah, I think they can be good. I think a lot of the clutch stuff is probably overblown just because they were in so many, and it's just so chancy. Just like, does one shot go down? It impacts the numbers to such an extent. Most likely they shouldn't be in that many games. I mean, they had really good net ratings with their core 4 in games. When Kyle, Fred, Pascal, and OG were playing, they were a really good team, like 4th seed in the East good. Those teams don't play as many games in the clutch. So I think it probably would have changed not only what we're talking about, but how we're talking about it if the season had been different. So I'm a little less concerned, I think, than you, although Pascal will be the guy with the ball and, as you said, did not deliver in a lot of games.
Yeah, no, I was going to mention the clutch thing has been something that's been talked about. Oren's right. Like, I've seen it all over Raptors Twitter for the entire season. I've seen it over and over again, and a lot of people have been all over Pascal Siakam. He's been, I don't even want to say the scapegoat, but he's been the main attraction, and not in a positive way, to be quite honest with you. But to be fair to Pascal, like, he's been pretty unlucky. Like, Lewis is right. This is a chancy thing. How many in and outs did we see from Pascal Siakam this season? How many? I think 6, 7 in clutch moments. Like, and we're talking like halfway through the hoop too. This isn't just like a rattle. This is Pascal's just, goodness gracious. And it's been at every level too. Every level of the court. It's been at the 3-point line. He's gotten an in and out. He's gotten a couple in and outs on floaters. He's driven to the hoop, in and out. So I don't know, man. I've seen Pascal. I've seen him do some really good things in the clutch this season, last season, the season prior to that, when Kawhi Leonard was there. We've seen him do things on the biggest stage in the finals. And I think, as weird as this sounds, the clutch, I think, I'm not sure, Oren or Lewis, honestly, if the clutch is it the last 5 minutes? Is that how it is, or is it the last 2 minutes?
5 minutes
generally.
within 5 points.
So it's 5 minutes within 5 points. So I think, as weird as this sounds, when you're in the NBA Finals, almost every bucket, this sounds very cliche, but I think every bucket from when the game starts is a clutch moment. You're on the biggest stage, everybody's watching, and Pascal Siakam dominated in the NBA Finals. And I hate to keep going back to the NBA Finals when people talk about Pascal, but I don't want people to just take what Pascal's done this season and make essentially wash over what he's done his entire career since he's been a prominent player for Toronto. I think Pascal can't necessarily be I wouldn't call him a clutch player outright, but I also wouldn't call him unclutch. And I think Fred as well. Lewis mentioned Fred. Fred's done some pretty big things, man, for Toronto in the last few years as well. Kyle, obviously, before Fred and Pascal even got here, Kyle was hitting clutch shots. So I don't think it's that big of a problem, Oren, but I think it's definitely, I would lie to say it wasn't a talking point this entire season.
Yeah, Pascal also has done it. I mean, less big stages. He did have that little step through floater in the finals, but also last year before COVID, he had 2 layup game winners against one was a game winner against the Kings and the Warriors, I think, where he had drives and sort of offhand, like wrong foot, wrong hand layup.
Siakam?
Yes, yeah.
I think it was the Suns, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was the Suns.
One of them was the Suns, because I remember Bridges, I think, was guarding him. Yeah.
Yeah. And those are clutch plays, right? Like,
100%.
Obviously, he's missed a couple this year, but, add in a couple makes last year and it balances out. So I think it's just an unlucky year. I'm not that worried.
Yeah. I mean, you guys make good points. Like, the thing with taking the ball out of Kyle's hands, I think, is an important part about this that people don't talk about, which is like not only in clutch time, but also just in general. Kyle's like touches per game, his time per touch, all that stuff has gone down this season, where Fred's has gone up, and they're putting the ball in Fred's hands much more as like a de facto point guard. And that's more of a long-term play. It's like, we need to develop you in this mold, and it might not lead to great results right away, but in the future it could. But I mean, I think we're glossing over some of the things that Siakam has done this season, because it's not just the scoring. It's, these bad decisions he makes when he gets called for these charges, right?
Yeah.
And it's this double dribble he did against the Knicks. Like, there's been enough bad stuff this season in the clutch with him that I think it's fair if you question his ability to be like, a Kawhi Leonard, where you're like, okay, here's the ball, now we're gonna get out of the way and you're gonna ISO and hopefully you score. And like, I think he was never that guy, and he was miscast as that guy if they put him in that role a little bit too often. But yeah, I think I agree that like it could definitely, like, clutch is one of those things that can definitely change pretty quickly, and I guess with a little luck and a little more advantageous sets. But I don't know, it's something to keep an eye on.
One more thing, Oren, with the clutch, the entire discussion surrounding these clutch time situations and all this. I think people get so caught up on the Raptors not necessarily having a quote unquote closer. I've heard this so many times. I'm actually seeing it in the comments now about how Siakam's not a closer, about how Kyle Lowry's not a closer, or Fred VanVleet's not a closer. You can't. There isn't that one guy, like Oren said, Kawhi. When the Clippers are in that situation, the game, the ball, everything's on the line. What's that famous saying that Max Kellerman says with Iguodala?
I want Iguodala. I don't know. Yeah,
he says something about a death beam staring planet Earth in the face or something like that.
Yeah,
Max Kellerman went on some crazy Iguodala. Who was it over though? By the way, Oren, I don't want to get too off track. It was over Steph Curry. Yeah, so that was just for ratings. Max Kellerman. What was I saying? I think it's actually advantageous for Toronto for the fact that they have 3 guys who have been in clutch situations, who are not necessarily, again, quote unquote closers, but guys who are able to hit clutch shots. And I think if you have a guy like Kyle Lowry, if you have a guy like Fred VanVleet, and you have a guy like Pascal Siakam, my thing is you have 3 guys. I think you just take out of those 3 guys who has the hottest hand of that game. And I think that's something that a lot of teams don't have. Like for the Bucks, I think the ball is going to Giannis no matter what. I mean, people wouldn't be shocked if it went to Chris Middleton. people would be kind of shocked, I guess, if it went to Drew Holiday, but naturally you probably want the ball in Giannis's hands the most in the last 2 minutes, right? For the Clippers, it's Kawhi Leonard. Again, people wouldn't be shocked if it was Paul George. And it goes on and on. For the Lakers, it's probably LeBron and AD, right? And I think for the Raptors, you have three guys who you can rely on and say, you know what, Fred, you've made this big shot before, and you have 32 so far in the game. Kyle only has 18. Pascal has 20 and isn't shooting too well. Fred, this is going to be your shot tonight. And the next night it could be Pascal, and the next night it could be Kyle. A lot of teams don't have that. So I'm okay with the Raptors, again, not having, quote unquote, a closer to finish things off, or to have that superstar that can really just close whenever you need him to. 2018-19, it was Kawhi Leonard a lot of times for the Raptors in clutch moments, and a lot of times he delivered. And I think that's what opened people's eyes to, hey, the Raptors finally have a superstar in Toronto. And a lot of times clutch moments, guys, are what separates superstars from stars. And I think now we're starting to realize with this season that Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam are not superstars. Sometimes you really just got to say it out loud for people to truly understand that Fred and Pascal and Kyle right now at this moment are not superstars. They are all three are all-star level players, but they're not superstars. But again, a lot of times you can't really say as a fan of a team that my team has three, all-star level players. And who knows, OG Anunoby might get there as well.
I think that's fair. But I also think like Siakam can be a number one option. Like, I definitely don't shy away from that. I just actually think Giannis is a good comparison of, like, they have started to take the ball out of Giannis's hands a little bit late in the game and put it in Drew's hands and put it in Chris Mills' hands, just because, Giannis is, I guess, somewhat predictable and downhill player and not as much of a shooter. And I think, like, you could see that happen, or I could see that happen to Siakam, where he's not the best clutch time guy, go get us a bucket, but he is a number one option throughout 48 minutes. And, like, that's fine if that's the case, right?
No, that's totally fine for me. Some people in the chat or and Lewis, they're saying Gary Trent Jr. Gary. That's another guy. Like, are you really all that mad if the ball late in a game next year goes to Gary Trent Jr.? I mean, I'm not terrified. He hit a pretty nice game winner this year. I don't know if it was the Raptors' only game winning shot, like true game winning shot this year, but I wouldn't be too mad if it was Gary Trent Jr. either. So I think the Raptors are in good shape, man.
If the ball starts in his hands, you probably don't want that.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
I think the point is, it can't be a static set, right? Like, this is what you're saying, Sahal. If you just give the ball to Fred, if you just give it to Siakam and just stand around, that's not going to do it. And you could do that with Kawhi. You can do that with LeBron. So they don't have a guy who can do that. It doesn't mean what they have doesn't work. You can run inverted 4-1 pick and roll with Pascal handling, Fred screening. Like, there's options to get a good shot. It just takes a little more work. I think what you say is wise, in that they don't have a guy the level of the closer they had, and it doesn't mean they can't close. Two things can be true at once.
Yeah, and this season, if anything, trying definitely happened. Like, they've tried it all, So I think, like, coming into next season, they will have a much better idea of what works and what doesn't. But let's move on to another question. I guess we'll go. Let's talk about the defense, maybe, because, I mean, coming into the season, people thought the Raptors would probably keep their, at least, if not elite defense, they would probably keep a top 10 defense for sure. And the half-court offense was really the biggest question heading into the season. And we've seen a little bit of a reversal where, if I'm correct, the Raptors offense is ahead of their defense right now as things stand. They just haven't been very good defensively. Very inconsistent. One game they'll look very good, and one game they'll look very bad. And I mean, a huge part of that was the center rotation, and it got a whole lot better with Khem Birch. But I guess, like, do you guys think that is enough? Do you think, like, Khem Birch in a starting role, if that's the case next season, is that a team that can be like a top 10 defense?
Oh man, with Khem Birch, considering everyone else's health, being in good shape? I think absolutely. I think a lot of people have had that question where it's like, if you bring back the core four of Kyle Lowry, OG, Pascal, and Fred, and then that 5 spot, whoever it is, Khem Birch, or it could be another guy they bring in, and Khem Birch is coming off the bench. I think you slot Khem Birch in there. Absolutely. I think a lot of it also comes down to, can you get real defensive game changers off the bench? Can you do that? Because for Toronto a few years ago, when Fred was coming off the bench in that Kawhi season where they were starting Danny Green, you had a guy come in and just be a menace, and Fred off the bench. You had a couple of guys that could really change games off the bench, and now we're starting to see it. We saw at times an all-NBA level defender in Fred this year, and we know what we get in Pascal and OG. OG's one of the best wing defenders in the league. That's clear by now. He's gotten, I don't know necessarily, Oren and Lewis, if he's gotten the true national attention he deserves. Some people have mentioned him. I know Zach Lowe has mentioned him. Some other, prominent NBA writers have mentioned him on their podcast. But you have OG, you have Pascal, you have Kyle and Fred. And I think Kyle also, specifically with him, you can kind of, I want to say, imagine that a step back defensively is bound to happen for Kyle. We kind of saw it this year as well, where he's not that defensive ace that he used to be. I mean, it's normal. The guy's 35 years old. I would have expected it maybe 2 years ago with the amount of minutes he's been playing since he's been a Toronto Raptor. But who can you really bring off the bench that can change things? Utah has looked pretty damn good, in the final, I want to say 15, 20 games of the season. They ran that, box and one with him in multiple games. Stanley, yes, but a lot of times with Stanley offensively, it feels like you're going 4-on-5. Malachi, yes, but we'll see. I don't know. I think they can. I definitely think they can be one of the NBA's best defensive teams, considering, again, assuming that there's full health all around the board. Not like this year, because this year a lot of guys are missing.
Yeah, I'm going to double down on that and say they would have been a top 10 defensive team this year.
Yeah.
If their guys had stayed healthy all year and they'd had Khem from the start.
100%.
I mean, their core four with Khem Birch had a net rating of 23, which is like, that's like Kobe Shaq in the 01 playoffs.
Right. That's
rating.
plus 23 per 100 possessions, just to be clear, right?
Not like we're not talking an overall net plus 23 together.
No, that's offensive rating 123.
Oh, offensive rating
100.
Oh,
Exactly.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
In 90 minutes, so not nothing, but like not a real sample.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense with Khem is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like his defensive ability is maybe not quite what Mark gave, but in the same stratosphere. It was phenomenal when he was alongside Toronto's best defenders. I think his ability to sniff stuff out was a little lower than Mark's. He was slower to the punch. He didn't blitz quite as well. His hands are slower.
Yeah.
But his athleticism is probably, I was thinking about this the other day, the most athletic center Toronto has had since, I don't know, Bebe?
Yeah.
He is so athletic. He covers space like a cat. He's just
a gazelle.
Gone,
No.
It's crazy.
100%.
So top 10, no doubt. That's maybe even underselling how good they could be defensively.
Yeah. I think Kyle took a step back this year at the point of attack in terms of staying in front of his man. I don't think that's talked about enough, but
which has been a trend for a few years.
Okay. But Baines was really just so bad for the system that when you watch Khem Birch play, like I agree with you guys. I was just kind of trying to be devil's advocate. Like Khem Birch is such a perfect system fit for the Raptors because of his athleticism. He can go, he can double someone, he can get back to the post and get his guy or get a rebound. And then obviously there's the other stuff, the running in transition, some of his dribble handoffs. Like he can do a lot, but especially on the defensive end, I just love how quickly he can get from one place to the next. And like, that's what we ask our centers to do. We don't ask them to drop. and do some simple Enes Kanter stuff. We ask them to hedge. We ask them to double team someone and then go find their rotation. And then maybe you need to find a third rotation within the same shot clock. Like, it's not an easy job. And Aaron Baines just wasn't the right guy for it. I think, Aaron Baines isn't in a vacuum as bad as he was this season. He could probably play a drop and be okay on a Portland kind of team. But yeah, I think Birch has made it very clear that he's a very good fit. But I also think, like, if this team wants to contend for a championship, it can't be Aaron Baines and like Gillespie, for example. It has to be two starter quality bigs, like a Ibaka Gasol kind of split. I think that's how you either have an elite big or you have two really good bigs. I think that's the only really real way to contention. Other than maybe that OG Siakam front court, that does deserve some more time to show what it has.
Yeah, Khem reminds me a lot of Serge Ibaka with his defensive mobility. And I see, a lot of people bringing up how Khem might not be strong enough. And I think that's okay in the system that Nick Nurse employs. I think it's okay because Khem's running back and forth. They're switching everything. They double team a lot in this defense. Serge Ibaka a lot of times wasn't strong enough. He didn't have that core strength to deal with a Joel Embiid or a Jokic down low by himself. And I think with the Raptors that they don't ask you to do that, which is a good thing. They don't ask you to just go one-on-one with Jokic all game. They had the luxury of doing that with Marc Gasol a lot, where they could just plug him on Joel Embiid and match minutes with Joel Embiid. And we saw what Marc Gasol has done to Joel Embiid and guys like Nikola Vucevic. But they don't have that guy, but I think that's okay. I think that's fine. I think they can get away with that.
Yeah. I guess that's what's so crazy about. Were you going to say something, Lewis?
No, totally in agreement.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's what's so crazy about Mark, though, when you like, it just kind of connected with me, but like most bigs who are that like, that fluid and like can get to the position so well, can't also deal with a post-up threat like Joel. And like that's what Mark does. And like that's the fair knock on Khem, is that he is not very good in the post. His defense against like those type of bigs needs work. But like you said, like the system accounts for a bit of that. They will double team those guys. They're not afraid in the least to double team those guys.
Real quick, guys, let me ask you guys a question. Aaron Baines got, if I'm not mistaken, a 2-year, $14 million contract from Toronto, right? Has Khem Birch raised his level enough in his stint with Toronto where he could command that type of salary? Because that type of salary, it sounds like quite a bit, but really when you look at it relative to the rest of the league, Steven Adams is making $30 million this year. So would you guys be okay with a similar type of contract, even a longer contract? A lot of people want Khem Birch for 3 years in the offseason. What do you guys think Khem Birch is going to command? What region of money do you think he's going to get? Because I've seen everything, by the way. I've seen 3 million people throw up 3. Yeah. Oh, you think more than that? More than 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he is sort of played himself out of the mid-level exception, which I think Aaron Baines took all of it, right, for the Raptors. He was
I think he did, yeah.
Level.
No, the Alex Len took like a
Yeah.
You're right.
I totally forgot Alex Len was a Raptor.
He played, and he's playing a lot right now for Washington.
When was that? 6 years, 7 years ago? I can't quite remember.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Don't remind me.
I think Khem is probably outside of that. That would be. I mean, if Toronto gets him at $7 a year, that's surplus value that you can build a championship team with. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Are we looking at like a Tristan Thompson contract, like a 2-year, 19?
Yeah, I think 10
that sounds much more reasonable.
I think 10. I think Derek Favors is like a pretty good example. I think he got a 10 by 3, if I'm correct, like a $30 million contract. Something like that. But I mean, it's going to be weird, like how they choose to, pay this free agency, because also like, I mean, if he's the starter, then that's obviously fine. But if you pay a starter and then you also pay Khem 10, I'm not sure that's the best use of your resources when you consider that OG at the 5 could be the best lineup in a playoff series. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. But the last question I have, I'll go to you first, Lewis, is where are you at with Fred VanVleet's playmaking? Because I mean, from what I see, like he started the season, like we talked about, he's been the point guard more often than not for the Raptors. They've clearly made it a point to give him the ball and make decisions. And I think he took like very significant steps early this season where we were like, oh, I didn't know he could do that. And then I think he might have hit somewhat of a wall at one point. Towards the middle, late, and then the last few games he's played, I've seen him do some things that are like even higher level, where the just things I have never seen him do before in terms of like looking off a defender and making a no look pass, or those kind of things. So I guess where are you at with him, and like say they bring back Fred and no Kyle in the event something like that happens, like does this team have enough playmaking without a Kyle Lowry?
I think that's a really important question. I think probably yes. I'll be about the biggest Fred defender you'll find. In fact, to the extent that for the vast majority of the season, not towards the end, Kyle was incredible. From about the COVID break on, Kyle really picked it up. But for the most of the season, Fred on ball was Toronto's best offense. A lot of his passing comes down to whether he can score around the rim. When teams just short circuit his actions and say, beat us, score, and he can't, then his passing looks bad because they close all the passing gaps. They ask him to make a layup and he can't. And so a lot of his athleticism, if any of it is sapped from an injury, that's when he gets those 2-3 assist games. Counterintuitively, you think it's the scoring that's affected, but he's such a good shooter. Often he can score anyway. It's the passing that's sort of shut down when he's hurt. When he's healthy, I think he is an elite point guard, on ball creator. He's gotten better at passing for twos. He's always been fantastic at passing for threes, hitting shooters. He's gotten a lot better at hitting rollers, hitting cutters. He's not Kyle, but Kyle's been one of the best 2 or 3 point guard passers in the league for years.
In the league, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like we're spoiled, and he is very, very good.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think with Fred, I've mentioned to Oren how, on past shows, how I'm kind of worried if Kyle moves on. I guess now seeing how much Malachi Flynn has improved in such a short amount of time has me less worried about the point guard position. I'm kind of worried about the long-term, the fit beside, Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit worried because Gary Trent Jr. to me should be utilized mostly as an off-ball threat. I think on ball it's not that he can't score, but he takes a lot of tough jumpers, man. Like he takes a lot of tough mid-range jumpers that honestly you're shocked a lot of times when they go in.
His diet is like a McDonald's, because everything's hard to eat in terms of like your stomach. But yeah,
it's
continue.
tough. Like, watching Gary Trent Jr. It's I think it was much easier for the eyes to watch Norman Powell because of his ability to be that 3-level scorer. Norman was so good at each level of the court offensively. There was a point this season, I know it feels like years ago, but Norman was just dropping 30 and then 35 and 40 and 28. And Gary Trent Jr. had a very good scoring run himself, but he just makes it look a little tougher. So I'm kind of worried with the fit with Fred and Gary Trent. That's why I really, really hope we get Kyle back for next year. Maybe we sign him to like a retirement contract. Again, Malachi makes me feel a little better, but I don't know, man. Fred's playmaking, again, Lewis is right, man. Like, Kyle Lowry has spoiled the absolute shit out of us. Like, I'm being totally honest. He has spoiled us insanely because Kyle's, again, been one of the best passers in the league. And then watching Kyle for so many years at such a high usage, and then Fred VanVleet comes in and we're over-diagnosing his playmaking. I think he's taken strides, man. He's taken strides, like Lewis said. So I'm okay, but a little part of me is worried with the fit beside Gary Trent Jr. Hypothetically, if the Raptors do sign GTJ in the offseason.
Yeah, sorry to jump in again. I just wanted to say one thing about that I really agree with. Fred has smaller windows than a lot of point guards. the
Mhm.
size, but also the finishing. And so often when other point guards will have like 2 dribbles to make a pass, Fred only has 1. And so you need him to play along really heady guys, like someone who can relocate immediately and know exactly where to be, someone
Yeah.
who can just shoot backdoor to clear out space for a shooter behind him. Kyle is that. That's why Fred's so good alongside Kyle. Gary Trent has not so much proven to be. So I completely agree with you that the fit may not be ideal there.
Yeah. No, that fit would definitely worry me because I mean you have OG at the 3 and he's not an advanced playmaker. And then if Khem is your 5, he's shown flashes for sure, but he's not an elite playmaker either. So I mean, I don't know if Fred and Pascal as your 2 hubs is enough. Like you guys have said, Kyle has really like made us take that aspect of the game for granted where the ball moves so well and we're just used to that from like Raptors teams right now. But if in the event that he left, I think it would be the biggest cause for concern for me in the whole roster. It's, it's not the 3-point shooting, it's not the defense. It would be like, okay, do we have enough playmaking without Kyle to really like we talked about, this is not a team where you can give a superstar a ball and say, go get us something. So the ball has to move and guys have to get open shots. So that fit, it worries me a little bit for that reason. But at the same time, like we just talked about, the steps, you can't not be encouraged by the steps he's made this one season. Like I also think we need to remind myself sometimes and the audience that like this is Fred VanVleet's first year playing point guard in the NBA. Like that's fair to say. He's always been like an off-ball player. He's always been a shooting guard, and like he definitely had moments where he was a point guard, but this is his first season where he is the team's like point guard. Like every day the ball's in your hands, you're starting. So even though he's like an older player, the fact that he's making these strides in his first season, really doing that, I think is impressive. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah, no, for sure. I didn't even notice we've been going for 52 minutes. That is pretty crazy. We're usually, anywhere between 40 to 45.
This is our second last game. It's so sad. Like I know we got one more. Almost over.
We got one more Sunday afternoon. Pacers matinee game. Oh man, it's gonna be so weird. No Raptors in the playoffs. It's gonna be a bit strange.
Who you guys rooting for without the Raptors?
Denver's my team out west. They have been for a few years, but I don't really see them doing it. I just really don't want the Clippers to win because I'm a petty person. Yeah. But like I would love Joel to win in the East. That would be my pick in the East.
Yeah. I really want to see Joel cap off an MVP level year, and he's not the MVP. I think it's pretty clear that most people can agree that Nikola Jokic is the guy this year. But Embiid is an MVP. He played like an MVP all year. So I really want to see Embiid take that next step. I feel like you look at the 76ers the last 3-4 years, and they're just known as that second round team. They've ran into Boston so many times, gotten their ass whooped. They've ran into the Raptors. Kawhi Leonard hit that shot that Raptors fans are going to remember forever. We'll see. I think the 76ers, when they had Jimmy Butler that year, that was their best shot. I really do think if they got past the Raptors, they would have had a damn good chance of going all the way. But I want to see Embiid really take his game even further. Or even, honestly, if he can just keep it at that MVP level consistently through the playoffs, we'll see. Ben Simmons, the rest of their supporting cast is going to have to play good. They're going to have great games from, bench players all over the place. People have been talking about Tyrese Maxey a lot. Let's see if they throw him into the fire in his first NBA playoffs. I'm excited to see the 76ers. And it's weird to say that. I know a lot of people don't like the 76ers naturally as Raptors fans. I also want to see LeBron kind of cement his legacy in the playoffs, get that ring. I think it's going to be number 5, right? If he wins this year.
Yeah.
I want to see LeBron cement his legacy. I want to see if Giannis can really go all the way. Because honestly, if he doesn't, Budenholzer, I salute you, my man. You're gone. I'm rooting for a lot of teams, man. I want to see the Knicks do well too, man. The Knicks,
that'd be fun.
First time in a while they've been in the playoffs. So I want to see them do well. The Suns are a good story this year. There's so many teams, man. There's so many teams. It's gonna be a fun playoffs.
How about you, Lewis?
I want the Bucks to win.
Yeah.
I want Giannis. Like, he will win. Giannis is just he's too good. He's gonna win a championship one of these years.
Yeah.
And now that he's Drew Holiday, I want to see them just rampage.
They're probably my pick to come out of the East. Like, I don't believe in the Sixers. I just like Joel Embiid, but I really like the Bucks' chances this year. It feels pretty open.
Nets?
It feels like the Nets. My only thing is like the health. Like, if you're James Harden and you have 2 games to ramp up for the playoffs, like, I don't think that's ideal at all. And the Bucks just have that continuity. I can never say that word, but I think they got I don't think that'll be an easy series at all. But I think
we'll teach them one day, Lewis.
Yeah.
Oren, they're asking for none other than the sim, the Tankathon lottery sim. We've been doing it. How many shows now? I think this would be the 3rd, maybe 4th, 5th. We've been doing it. People have been looking forward to it, and I think so far we've gotten 9th, 8th, and I'm not sure what else we've gotten. So
we got 9th and then 8th. So this will be. So
let's see.
7th.
Let's see if we get top 3.
Hey!
Wow!
We did it.
First one.
Look at us.
Fade for Cade. It is.
This means we get him.
Fade for Cade. It is.
Okay, now I'm more confident. Now I'm more confident in the draft.
Okay.
Lottery.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go for one more. I was about to say, okay, let's not take our chances here.
We're happy there. We'll only be happy there, but we're happy there.
Yeah, 100%. The Raptors, by the way, locked in, Lewis, if I'm not mistaken, the 7th overall lottery odds, which is cool to see. And we'll see, man. We'll see. Again, this is weird approaching this off season now for Toronto Raptors fans and for the organization because. Yeah, they're not in the NBA playoffs, so we'll see. We've been going on for almost an hour. I think we'll wrap it up there.
Yeah.
This was the wrap-up. And before you guys leave us tonight, we need you to like, comment, subscribe to the Raptors Republic channel. Turn on the post notifications if you haven't already. Lewis, before we leave, I know you have some stuff to plug. Again, our new managing editor of Raptors Republic, congratulations. It's a huge gig.
You. Yeah, I'll have some postseason wrap-up stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, after we get some of the farewells with the guys, I have a cool piece coming up about the Lakers championship odds. Actually,
let's get it.
Which is going to be fun. So tons of stuff. Playoffs is exciting, whether or not the Raptors are in them.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, there's so many teams out there that I think I'm gonna have so much fun watching. This, by the way, because Lewis doesn't have his Twitter ad out there like we do. Is Lewis's Twitter profile. So everybody, if you're watching, follow Lewis Zatzman right now. Do it right now. He's one of the best on Raptors Twitter. Again, a guy that's always out there dropping 538 articles. Again, he's on CBC. You see it there. And then he's got the Hito Turkoglu header. So come on, guys, ball. That's going to do it for us, though. I'm your co-host, Sahal Abdi, again here with Oren Weisfeld. Tonight, the Raptors, unfortunately, lost to the Dallas Mavericks 114-110, bringing the Raptors record to 27-44 on the season. We'll see you guys on the last and final regular season game versus the Indiana Pacers on Sunday. I better see all of you guys here. Take care.